Hello everyone, I'd like to read to you a book called This is the Feast. This book is a poem written about the first Thanksgiving. It tells the story in two ways. Before we read, I'd like to show you a few of the pictures. This is a drawing of what the Mayflower may have looked like. The Mayflower is the ship that brought the Pilgrims across the ocean to America in the 1600s. This shows all the Pilgrims who were on the ship. The ship had rough weather and rocked back and forth a lot, so the Pilgrims got very sick to their stomachs. There were many storms as they came across the ocean, so this is a storm that's on the ocean that made them sick and also made it very hard to stay afloat on top of the water. This is the mast of the ship. It's the tall part where someone could stand so they could see further into the distance and see when they were coming near to the land. When the Pilgrims first came to America, it was nearly winter time, and there was snow on the ground, and they weren't prepared for snow, and they still had to cut down trees and do other jobs to build houses to get ready for the winter. They all lived together in one house the first year to try to stay warm and save time and save energy of building many houses. It was long ago, and they didn't have stoves, ovens, refrigerators, or even grocery stores, so it looked very different. They did learn to grow a crop called corn, but the corn was different than the corn we eat. It was maize, and came in different colors and was much harder than the corn we eat. These are the Wampanoag Indians, or the Wampanoag Native Americans, who already lived on our continent and who were very leery or afraid of the new coming Pilgrims. These are the Pilgrims and all the work they had to do to try to make enough food to survive. And this is Tisquantum, or Squanto. He is a Native American who knew how to speak English and helped the Pilgrims. This is a boat that they made to learn how to fish for a kind of fish in the ocean called cod. Here are crops that they grew, or food, and chickens and other animals that they used for food. They had to learn to pick berries and know which kinds were safe and which kinds were not. And they learned to do many things the same way the Native Americans did. They also had a feast we know about. Let me read you the poem, This is the Feast, by Diane Z Shore, illustrated by Megan Lloyd. This is the feast. See the Mayflower in the distance on the ocean? This is the Feast by Diane Z Shore, illustrated by Megan Lloyd. This is the Mayflower, sturdy and strong. Her sails skim the skies as she journeys along. These are the Pilgrims down on their knees, seasick and frightened on rough, rolling seas. They're in a boat in this picture, but they're underneath the top part of the boat. These are the storms and the battering gales, crashing the decks and thrashing the sails. Land ho, America! World unknown, a wilderness wild, a place to call home, that greeted the Pilgrims fearful but brave, who sailed off to freedom through wind and through wave, across the Atlantic so far and so wide. Thanks be to God, our strength and our guide. These are the oak trees, bundled in snow, felled for the houses as bitter winds blow. See the houses they built? This is the hearth, soothing the soul, as death and disease take a terrible toll. Many pilgrims died the first winter in America because it was too cold and they didn't have enough food or enough places to keep warm. And they were still sick from having been on the boat for so long. This is the corn, a treasure of maize, black, yellow, red, and blue nuggets ablaze. These are the fields, stubbled, unclaimed, cleared by the Wampanoag before the plague came, and found by the pilgrims exploring ashore, far from the baskets of nuggets galore. That colored the gray, weary days of despair. Thanks be to God for the lives He has spared. These are the birch trees budding in spring, nestlings of robins and promise they bring. These are the Indians, fearful, aware. Welcome, their greeting, approaching with care. This is the corn seed planted in mounds, with herring to nourish the seed in the ground. This is Tisquantum, or Squanto, his name, the keen-eyed Pocketot, the plague didn't claim, who helped sow the corn, the colorful maize, and shared with the pilgrims his knowledge and ways of fishing and trapping and hunting the land. Thanks be to God for this wise, clever man. These are the elm trees brushing the skies as summer days dawn and pilgrims arise. This is the shallop skimming the tide, flashing with cod to be salted and dried. These are the corn shoots, fountains of maize, weeded and tilled through hot sunny days. These are the gardens, leafy and green, crowded with cucumber, spinach, and bean, that sprouted near cornfields threaded with vines of blossoming pumpkins and squash of all kinds, that flowered the cape that was nurtured by hand. Thanks be to God for this bountiful land. These are the maples in forests ablaze, where wild turkeys run and golden deer graze. These are the plums and cranberries tart, picked and preserved with gladdening heart. These are the cornstalks, soldiers of maize, gathered in sheaves during harvesting days. These are the baskets of plentiful crops, spilling with tassels and vegetable tops, and brimming with berries and chestnuts and plums that ripened in forests where golden deer run. A harvest of plenty all gathered with pride. Thanks be to God who doth us provide. This is the feast the pilgrims prepared, and welcomed the neighboring Indians, who shared in the singing and dancing a joyous 3 days of heartily feasting on mountains of maize, and puddings and codfish and lobsters and meat, of the deer and wild fowl, all roasted and sweet, and spread on a table of long wooden planks, then blessed with a prayer of heartwarming thanks for the friendships and harvest and bountiful land that was seeded and weeded and reaped by the hands of our hard-working forefathers, daring and brave, seeking freedom of worship through wind and through wave, as they sailed on the Mayflower, plodding but strong, her sails filled with dreams as she journeyed along. This is Thanksgiving, a time to remember the friendships and freedoms we all share together. I hope that you've enjoyed reading this poem. This is the feast about the first Thanksgiving.